But we are all told people so. So probably let's take just a brief moment. Do you want to shake it up a little bit and introduce ourselves? Paul?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So, my name is, I'll start first. I'm Diana Noel. I'm the chair of the school committee. You know, I'm also, a lot of us wear many hats in town. It's a very small town. So, I have been on the finance committee, and I've transitioned to being assistant town court. That is my other hat. Been here about 30 years. Wonderful.
And Diane is not telling you that she was one of the primary people involved in getting the school started again.
Yes. So that is actually the impetus of me getting more and more involved in the town. Keep going. And yes, I'm continuing to go now that I am no longer commuting all the way down. Much more.
Well, hi, so full disclosure, I worked with Ruthann. I hired her as a principal. She did a fantastic job at that. She also, in my conversations with her, we talked about her aspirations, and I think I said, you know, you should be looking at superintendent. I retired. I think you went on.
I did.
And became a superintendent. So it's great to see you.
Nice to see you.
I had a good relationship, and she did a nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You gave me a lot of autonomy, and I took the principal to my throat. It was a very spectacular time in your career.
Yeah, that's great.
It really was, and I love that time. So thank you for that.
Oh, it's my turn. I'm still too. No. I'm always I've been in town for, I don't know, 36, 30, I can't count. It's 1988, I've been in town. And I'm currently also working here, new to the school committee, I've been on the school committee a year now. But I'm a Norton Gillingham person, and I trained the teachers last year to be an additional piece to them using the University of Florida curriculum, because that doesn't have much of a sensory to it, because a lot of things belong together in a way that I'd rather see be done differently. But so I taught them, trained them last year, and this year acting as a consultant. But since January, I've also been a reading interventionist. So working with the kids that the principal and the teachers are most concerned about. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
A very bit of big pictures. Teach in a 1-room 7th and 8th grade on a farm. And I've taught other places and done outdoor education. And I've been in town 7 years, and there's just a lot of nice overlap between this school and my school. And I heard that they were working really hard to get the school back up. I was really excited helping it continue. Just a very special here in the school committee.
Wonderful. Do a lot of the kids from here go to your school after?
We've had a few, yeah. But yeah, our school was closed. The school was closed for a number of years that I was teaching. So.
Hi, Adam.
Hi, Adam Holloway. I've lived in town since almost 20 years. I was actually with Diana, part of the original group that started the whole so here after all this time. By trade, I am a forensic expert in the field of fire ordnance cause and engineering. And I have 2 young children, in school. So I was just telling the other applicant, we're homeschool weirdos, so which creates an interesting dynamic being in the school committee, but.
Awesome, nice to meet you. Well, thanks for having me, everybody. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Being there, we do have questions.
We do have questions.
Carol is the first.
Yes,
Question answer. She's hopping in and out.
No trade-off questions.
We could, I could trade with her first and second question. Do we do that? Sure. So, my question, Carol's question, I'm asking, what is that attracted you? What is it that attracted you to our district? So, and what do you think makes this the right choice? You the right choice for this position? I just asked your question and you get to ask mine.
Okay. What attracted me to the position? I retired in 2020, and then I took
6-month order, I took an interim for 10 months. They offered me to stay longer and I didn't want to stay. So I figured I'm a little bored. And what attracted me to the position was well, I'll be honest, the 2 days a week in person and most definitely the project-based learning. So over the course of my career, I have really developed my own skills as a leader on how to be instrumental in moving curriculum and instruction forward for all students. And at one point in my career, I was an executive director. When I left Groton, I left for an executive director for Hillview Montessori Charter Public School, which is a K-8 Montessori charter public school, and it's hands-on learning. So was always attracted to doing, that's my own learning style, and there's not enough of that in public education. As I became a superintendent, it was my job to oversee curriculum instruction, professional development, operations and whatnot, personnel, budget, all of that. My true love was around curriculum. Alan did hire me in Groton, and one of the things that I was able to do in Groton was build a building-based curriculum team where we really looked at reading, math, science, and social studies, and I had teacher leaders, and we kind of did this on our own. We developed a team and started to look at data, and our data was really speaking to us about the gaps of what kids were having, why they weren't learning. And I was kind of lucky and fortunate enough to have Alan be very supportive of whatever I did, but I was able to get our school into a nationwide research study with Pearson and Scott Forsman around reading. And it was a pretty touchy subject in Groton, I'll be quite honest with you. They were reading recovery teachers, and it was back in the day, this was many years ago, where the philosophy of reading and teaching reading was very one way or the other. It was just completely. And so I was kind of crossing the bridge of not being receptive, but not in my school. In the other elementary school, they were quite miffed. Our teachers were, let's try whatever works. And so we became part of the reading study and really saw a significant gain in teaching phonemic awareness and phonics that we were missing. And kids were learning, especially the special ed kids. And just tell me your question again. So the project based.
What do you think makes you the right choice for this position? I think it's so speaking to you.
Yeah, I think my experience has been starting from Groton to being a superintendent and really understanding the ability to see learning in action in kids, the Montessori piece and that joy of kids really connecting to their learning. And that does not happen the same way for all kids, but it does happen the same way for all kids when kids are actively involved. And I think public education really misses that piece of try it, and struggle with it, and discuss it and feel it and touch it and involve your senses. And I went on from Groton to the Hillville, to Montessori school, to running a regional district where in New Hampshire, they incorporate vocational programs in the schools, which was kind of beautiful. We had an automotive program at our high school, so kids were learning a trade in the high school. And then when I left there, I went to Webster, and Webster was like what I call a turnaround district. And they were, at the bottom of the bottom, the 1 percentile in the elementary school. And I took all my skills and sort of started with reading, but then we got to get project-based learning in here. And, it took years. I was there for almost 6 years. We got innovation pathway grants, and I'm really proud of the work we did around this. Now at that high school, at Bartlett High School, they have advanced manufacturing and human health services pathways, and we got grants for that. I also was instrumental in getting the MSBA $51 million. But the only reason I'm telling you that is not because of the $51 million, it was because of the redesign of the high school was based on the educational philosophy of hands-on learning for the high school students. We had a high number of dropout kids. And the only way to re-engage kids was to have them actively do something, like pick a pathway. And I spent a lot of time going to different schools. I went down to Florida to look at different programs of, those different pathways, how to re-engage students that were just completely disengaged. It's really hard to get kids to trust themselves to learn something new when they've been disengaged for years. In the high school, kids were disengaged for years. So I believe in the project-based learning piece because I know it works. I think kids have to do and try. And somewhere along the line in public education, it between conform, sit down, rote memory, and not actively engage every day in doing. And you gotta do to learn. So I that drew me to the job, and so did the 2 days a week, because I'm at a point in my life where I don't have to work, I'm not rich, but I'm bored. And I have more to give in some capacity. I have a wealth of experiences around education. I have been a change agent in all of my roles in a good way, because it's all been designed around building programs that help kids. And that's my core belief, is that's our job, right? No matter what your role is, right? It doesn't matter what your role is. Our job is to make sure kids are safe, engaged and wanting to learn, and producing new thoughts and able to converse with somebody else that might have a different thought than theirs in a peaceful manner. And I think somewhere along the line, some of that gets lost in big public schools, unless you have really good leaders that are on top of it. And that's a lot of work. Did it?
He's got the passion.
I do.
And you won't be bored.
I think it's because somewhere along the line, as an educator, you were that student, and somebody turned on your passion. Somebody helped you find out what makes you tick, and that's what kids are doing in school. They're learning who they are every minute of the day, and we want to build critical thinkers, confident learners, and everyone can get there. And some kids get lost in the weeds, and those are the kids that I feel most passionate about, the ones that get lost in the weeds. And there's a lot of kids that get lost in the weeds, and they don't have to, if we just give these little things. All right.
You want to ask her?
I do the Louise question. We are interested to know what you see as special considerations for the entry plan of specifically an interim superintendent. How would you begin? What would you seek out? What information would you want from you?
I think anybody coming into a new position, for a temporary position, really has to build an entry plan with the existing team that's here. I was an interim in Washington, and the plan that we built collaboratively. So any interim should not be coming in here to change the trajectory, of where your vision is going. I think what's also enticing is that you're still around, Carol, that it's like a good sounding board to have somebody that you can still partner with about where you're going. This is a short-term position. You want someone to maintain the ship, participate, and if things can grow in one area, contribute, but certainly not turn the ship around. I like to call it a yacht, but I think you want someone who's going to take the existing plan and work with the people that are here to develop any kind of country plan, right? To further grow your school in a way that you can handle. I think that's the catch-22 here. You don't want to grow too fast. I don't think you do, because you have a little bit of magic going on here, and there's going to be a point where you're going to be like, this is it. That's just my today's view.
Yeah, the road is little plateaus and everything.
Yeah.
You want to ask what more? She may have already answered it to your.
I think that's it. Thank
What are your greatest strengths and weaknesses as a leader?
Good question, and I think they're probably the same thing. I'm honest. And sometimes direct, which is a strength and also can be a weakness.
You can share how it could be a strength and a weakness.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a strength in being a leader. You have to be able to express yourself. I think I have the very good expressive skills, communication skills, written, verbal, can collaborate with people. I'm very experienced at being a facilitator of helping those around me on my team grow. And, you know, I think sometimes being able to do all that when somebody's not ready to hear it can be a weakness.
Do you mean, that you're trying to help them grow, but they don't see it?
No, I'm not. I think people. Well, no,
Or they
I think
they
being
can't hear
direct.
the feedback
Yeah,
that then like them grow?
yeah,
Right.
I can be direct. And not for everybody. You know, I think that directness is not for everybody. I try to read the room, so I'm pretty good at it, but being direct sometimes can be a weakness. Other weaknesses, I hate mayonnaise.
They serve that a lot at the lunch table.
Has a good sense of humor, check.
Right. This is a multi-part question. So in your experience, how would you as a interim superintendent focus on student growth and achievement, work with the community, maintain and sustain the leadership team, and go about planning for the subsequent year's program budget? And I can get those to you in minutes.
It's a good, so I'll generally answer them.
Sure.
I think how I would be, part of it is I'd be here physically 2 days a week. I'd have district leadership teams or whatever you name them, people, meetings. I'd be out and about in the classrooms, building relationships. I would get to know the families. There's not a lot of people coming into this school, so I would, by virtue of being here, build relationships, learn the lay of the land, learn you know, what's going on here. And build that trust that I think any leader has to build through, you know, communications, whether those are newsletters that go out quarterly or weekly, or, you know, being seen on the days that I'm supposed to be here, being available on the days that I'm not, certainly in times of crisis, being here, showing up, you know, being present, and authentic. I think that's key to who I am and always have been, and getting to know the community. And I think, did I get everything? I think building the budget is teamwork. I think the budget comes from, you know, working with the teachers on what their needs are, looking at student data, what are our goals, being very specific about what the future goals are. I think having Carol's hand and voice still imprinted on the future is really key and important. And of course, the school committee, what are you looking for? What are your goals? You know, what is it that you want to prioritize? Because you obviously have a budget where you're going to have to prioritize your needs. That doesn't mean that the things that you can't fund don't matter. It just means what can you fund? And how are you going to spend your money tells where your goals are. And then I think actively looking for additional revenue coming to your beautiful thing that you have built is something that, you know, you're going to be doing. But over the course of my career, I've really been able to tap people for donations. You know, I don't know the community at all. I do know that I came early and had to use the ladies' room and then drove in the parking lot and then drove and I said, oh, maybe there's something in the center of town. And then I went to the center of town and really fast. And that's a little bigger than this. It's not much, but a little bigger, yeah. But we don't have like, we don't have anything.
Was never very open. When she came out on Wednesday afternoon.
No.
Yeah, those times when I'm leaving, so.
So I
And I locked town hall at 2 o'clock, so.
No, no, good, yes, something.
I tried to go around town hall, maybe that was you that was leaving, and just do not enter, and then I had to turn.
Right.
Because of one way.
It's just, oh, so there's.
You're learning to get to know the town.
I think listening is a key piece, and to learn this hard, and kind of get your finger on the pulse, and be like these, building relationships with lots of people.
That's great, thank you very much.
So the question I was given was, how do you create, an atmosphere, an environment where, the staff feels safe in bringing problems?
Well, I would truly hope that staff feel safe to bring problems to the principal, right? And I
So
think,
how do you
yeah.
create that?
I think that's already here, like from my sense of my walkthrough today. I think your staff do feel safe. And certainly, by me being here and then people getting to know who I am, I've always been a person that people come to. Even as a superintendent of a very large district, teachers would come to me when they were not getting heard. Right? And sometimes it's just hearing something, just taking the time to hear their perspective and validate their perspective. And then maybe solving a problem. Maybe there is a problem between a teacher and a principal. So I think, I have a master's in counseling, starting my career as a counseling, that is always who I present as, somewhat of a caretaker. So opening the door and making sure people feel heard. But again, I think that in a large district, I would always say, go to your principal first. And if they haven't tried going to your principal, then they could come to me. But I'm talking with 350 staff that I manage. And this is very, very, very different. So, hopefully people will learn who I am by having fun.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Yeah. So you say, if a teacher comes to you with a concern, instead of going to the principal, say, and you're listening to them, maybe they need to be listened to. What's the dynamic about what to do next? If it's really something that should be in the principal's rubric.
Yeah. So
It's
it's called coaching, right? So
Okay.
you coach the person, how comfortable are they, but without me to go to the principal? Or is it a serious situation where I need to put a bug in the principal's ear that the principal needs to go see the teacher, or the teacher needs to go see? So it really depends on what the issue is. And there could be a myriad of issues going on for a teacher. Or it could be something that the principal doesn't need to know about, maybe because they just needed somebody to talk to that day and it's personal. And they don't want anybody to know about it. So it really does depend on the situation and how you respond. I don't think it's one box answer. It really does depend on what the specific situation is, but
it sounds like your goal is
yeah,
to get the teacher and the principal.
yeah.
Talking to
If
that's
the situation,
appropriate.
right,
Yeah.
if the situation warrants that. But it depends, could be something completely not about school.
Right.
And sometimes it's that situation. And they just need somebody who they think might understand it a little differently. But if it's a follow-up, if it isn't for school, I think it's really important that the principal is involved. Like. It's like a family, like you have like this small network of people here. So, I have 4 kids, and when they have issues with each other, they often come to me, right? And I'm like, you need to deal with this with your brother, or you need to deal with this with your sister. You need to be able to, and if you need help with communication, that's one thing, but. So you coach people,
And you know where that line is
yeah,
with what the principal is in charge of.
yeah. Oh, I know all the lines. I know all of the lines. Every single one of them. And I'm not kidding.
Well, I get that you're completely still from the experience that so and you're telling me that you have a lot of confidence about you being able to make those decisions clearly in a way that's healthy, stepping on toes, that it's trying to work well with people. Yeah.
So describe the budget making process you've used and what your experience includes with regards to budget management and budgetary controls.
I've been a superintendent for 13 years, so I've been in charge of budgets, maybe 20 million plus. My process includes starting in the classroom. I think everything, I think your budget represents your goals, represents where you're trying to go. And so for me as a school leader, it was always about students, what do they need? Curriculum was one of the things that a lot of superintendents would cut, which is shameful because kids need resources to learn. They need supplies, so I start with having principals go back to their teams, their department heads, their teachers. What are your needs? List them out. Why are your needs? What are, something new. Oftentimes in big districts, you have programs that are paid for that no one uses. So on the back end of that, my team in the central office would be looking, well, how many times has somebody used this program that we're paying $20,000 for? And if the answer was 0, we wouldn't get it. So it's like a balanced process, but you would take the building-based budgets, you put together the central office budget, you take the special education budget, you take, all of that together and you put it together, and most often it's too high. Right, because everybody,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah. So I have to do a teaching of everybody. This is not about your wants, it's about your needs. And your needs have to be based on students. So think of it like building something from the classroom out. Okay, because the kids are the priority. And oftentimes in very large districts that gets lost because you have a lot of overhead. You have a lot of staff, you have special ed needs that are millions of dollars. And so then you work as a district level team to prioritize that, and then you bring it to the school committee. And the school committee either says, yep, great job, or nope, why are you doing this? And you explain it. And then in the communities that I worked in, you work with the town. And you go to the town, and they, in Webster, were great. It would be like, wow, okay. And it wasn't a fight. It was very transparent and very supportive, and we had an ongoing relationship. Washington, on the other hand, was very, very different. Their budget was never legit in any way. And so it was really hard.
By that, not legit.
They hadn't balanced their books in 2 years. And so because I knew that certain accounts go to the school, like school choice money would go to the school, and the cafeteria fund would come to the school. And when I went to ask how much is in the account, I need that to balance the budget. And I was only there for 10 months, and they couldn't give me a number. And then I went to the accountants and I said, well, what's going on? Well, it's messed up. We don't even, like, it's really messed up. So I actually had to use rural aid fund, which was like 200 grand to balance the budget. I had to come up with $1 million to just balance a operational budget that was not, and in that time, there were like, it was very messed up. I don't want to speak ill of them, but like they had staff. The teachers thought that there were all this staff that were in the budget, and they weren't in the budget. So then when I built the budget, they were like, she's cutting 14 teachers. There weren't 14 teachers being cut. There were no teachers being cut. It was positions that were never filled, that were never actually in the budget, but then they just were mad. And they were mad because the teachers union president, you're gonna love this one. There was a high school of 200 kids, they had 5 English teachers. And the president of the union was one of those English teachers, she didn't teach a class. And I'm like, you can't have 5 English teachers for 200, like, we're in a budget crisis here.
Right.
And so it just like, they just started making up all this stuff, and then the town voted down the budget. They were one of 2 towns that voted down the budget. And it was kind of crazy because they were hurting themselves. They were gonna vote down the budget. I was gonna have to give out pink slips in June to everybody if they didn't vote the budget. And they realized what they had done, so they voted the budget and then said, Ruthann, do you want to stay? I said, no, thank you. And they're $4 million in the hole. They were 4 million in the hole. So it was mismanagement of accounting.
That was a issue.
No, it was just their committee.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you have to be audited every year, so obviously the town wasn't having an audit then.
They were having an audit, but the auditors were complicit. They had been there for 14 years. And we kept, yeah.
Wow.
So, anyway, so the budget building is really important, and to me, it really speaks to your priorities of what you're gonna fund. But you have to be realistic. And I think that piece about what's your biggest strength and what's your biggest weakness, about being bold, I can be bold. I can do the right thing in the face of controversy, and had to in many situations as a superintendent, because I wasn't gonna be complicit in a budget that didn't accurately portray what was going on. I have a line of integrity that we just didn't. So, the budget process is collaborative, and it comes to the school committee, and ultimately that's your job, right? You have 3 jobs: the budget, hiring a superintendent, evaluating the superintendent, and creating policy. And so it comes to you, and whether you like it or not like it, and you're gonna stand behind it, we dialogue about what has to change, and then if it changes, it changes. But it has to fit the strategic plan of where you're going, right? It has to represent your values. It has to represent the students. It has to represent growth, right? Those are the non-negotiables, I think.
Would you speak about your experience working with principal, that's on this, but, and other building leaders who oversee teaching and learning? Especially, can you speak about handling the disagreement that might arise between you and the principal? What topics would be appropriate to discuss? And what topics would you leave alone, even if you disagree with how the principal is handling? And I've been partially answered this question already, but anything else that you want to share about?
As a superintendent of a large district, it was my job to hold district leadership teams meetings with my principal. And I did so weekly, sometimes daily. Had ongoing conversations of coaching people up. I'm thinking of Webster right now, was responsible of hiring many principals there. An elementary principal, several high school principals, and several middle school principals. There's a high level of turnover in all of those positions. And so you build relationships by being present, but you also build relationships by building a team. So part of building a team, and this is, I think, one of my skill sets, is I want to disagree with people. I want to have that dialogue of what's your opinion, what's your opinion, what's your opinion, because then we can understand different perspectives, and then we make a decision as a group. And I've always led that way. And there have been times when I did not disagree with what a principal, how he or she might be handling, say something simple as the entrance and exit of school. When it crosses a line, safety, I get involved. If you want chaos and there's no safety issues, when people start to complain, then I have to deal with complaints, then I might come to you. Or it could be, principal wanted to do something that I disagree with. I mean, can't even think of something. you don't, it's their school, like they have to be the leader of their school. And sometimes the best lesson is letting them do it and not finding the success, even if I could tell you it wasn't gonna work, but if you did it and you gave it your all, you're gonna be able to actually converse about it in a different manner to be reflective about your own growth than if I had told you. So it's not, you don't sit in the role of superintendent and say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. Because that's not the job, right? You're almost like a teacher of adults. And the adults and principals or directors of student services or Title I directors, and they're gonna do it their way and it may work.
And then you're on zero.
And then you say, oh. So it's about collaborating and sharing ideas and supporting that idea. Oh, you're gonna try that? Well, I don't know, it's gonna work, well, showing up to support. I mean, there was one thing about the Webster team, we were a force to be reckoned with. We would show up, so we would show up as a group. Our middle school was chaos. We had a very ineffective principal, and for a month, that's where I was every day. For a month, that's where the Title I director was every day. For a month, that's where the special ed director was for a day to support the principal. And there was so much chaos going around the school that we were needed. And just to calm things down, so to help, you do what you need to do. And it was fun.
You like going into chaos?
No, I like the kid.
Yeah.
It was fun, and you become, you get to learn more about the culture of what's really happening in school and how you can support it.
Did it get out of chaos?
It did get out of chaos.
Should have ended a possible.
It did get out of chaos, and that was like December. And there was a lot of coaching with this particular principal, and it did calm down. And he came to the own decision that it wasn't the role for him because he had been an assistant principal, and it was, we were desperate for people, and I'm like, we'll support you, and we did support him, but it wasn't for him. So he left.
And you let that be his decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we're gonna switch gears back to the budget. So I'm gonna just set the scene. If you could imagine that it is, let's say it's the middle of May, we have our town meeting at the beginning. Town meeting has passed, and you have learned that there is less funding coming in through the federal lunch aid process for fiscal year 27, the following year, than anticipated. What kind of problems would that create, and how might you look for a solution?
Certainly the problems, yes. And I'd take another look at you don't have a budget to beg, borrow, and steal from. You look at your budget last night and again this morning. And I think you really have to have some sort of fund, like safety funds. And I don't know if you've done like warrant articles in the community to have like a contingency for special ed or a contingency for like building issues, capital improvements. At some point, you need to have some sort of fund, so that emergency fund to build off of, because that could happen. I did have questions about the school choice numbers, because I was looking at them and we went from 43,000 to like 135. Right, and that's a big assumption. And so you'll be like $80,000 in the red if you can't get those kids to come in here. So what's the plan? What was the thinking, I guess, behind that?
Do we want to stop there?
Well, one of the questions later on is, do you have any questions for us? So we can answer that.
And we do have, we've got, when we, because of course, we're just finishing year 3, we do have some of those safety funds built in through the town. There is one special, but it's hard because aren't that many accounts related to a school that you can build up a reserve and have it continue year to year to year to year. School choice, of course, is one, you've only just started. So we do have that special ed contingency fund that, but it's limited to a certain percentage of your net school spending.
Yeah.
It's hard,
So I was thinking more of, and this may be New Hampshire brand talking to me, like having a warrant article where you could develop a fund with the town. And I don't know in Massachusetts.
You can, and we do. So in terms of supporting the building, we do have that, and we have for years, so it's actually built up. A reserve, so we do have a warrant, and you're right, a warrant article will persist year to year to year, so we do have some of that when it comes to supporting the applications.
We do have a foundation, which you would be great at,
Yeah.
in promoting, that Carol works with, and they've done really well raising money to help out this.
And you have a big event coming up
Yeah.
for a big new project. For the playground, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's like Florence Roach.
I know.
They raised money when I was the principal there, and we built a playground. We actually built it, the parents, and it was so much fun. And it took years for them to get the money. And back then it was probably 300 grand, and now it's probably $1 million.
We're trying to keep it from being $1 million, but it could be easily.
I'm trying to think of, were there other questions that we wanted to, we can.
You can, I interjected, so I apologize.
No, that's fine, so, so you're absolutely right about that, and looking at where there might be pockets of funds to help fill that gap, because of course, federal funding for all, so that was it's,
Yeah.
So I didn't get, I must have missed it, so what was happening in the meantime? So we find out the budget's passed, we're going on, we found out we don't have this money coming in. So while we're trying to figure out how to get money, what's your plan?
Oh, what would I do if there was a shortage of budget?
But we
Yeah,
figure out.
I think it's pretty scary, to be quite honest with you. It's hard to say. I really didn't see any wiggle room in your budget at all, and I mean that. I've never seen a budget so small in my life. I think that you gotta have a donor, because like, we gotta find somebody, that wants to be able to give. I have been in this situation before, when I was the executive director of Pilgrim Montessori. They hadn't paid their health insurance or their dental for months. And, it was like a couple weeks before Christmas. And they were a nonprofit organization, but they owned the building, so I had to go to the bank with the board's, permission, and borrow money to pay the back stuff, back taxes and stuff like that, and then pay the teachers, because it was Christmas time. It's stressful. It's like, those are stressful things to think of. I can't give you a real answer because I don't know your environment, or just looking on paper, I was like, wow. And that was my first thing last night. I was like, what if they don't get all these school choice kids? That's 80 grand. Like, where's that 80 grand? And that's a teacher. That's probably a teacher and a para here. So there has to be some sort of emergency, something. And that you can build up, like, it's in New Hampshire, we had it, and it was 50 grand every year. From the end of the year budget, we put 50 grand in special education, we put 50 grand in the capital improvement. And it just built over time, because you never know when things are gonna go, or what's gonna happen. I think it's when you get real creative and you start throwing ideas, with a team of people, and see what sticks. Because, no idea is a bad idea, but cutting staff is something that you want to do. Especially in a place like this, where you're already, putting things together to make it work. Sorry.
No, that is.
But I don't have the answers.
Yes, well, that is definitely an answer.
Right. Is there something you haven't learned about you that you would want us to know?
Well, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Let's see. No, I'm just a basic, average, honest person. You know, yeah. I started a book club with my girlfriends recently.
Oh, it's fun. What are you reading?
For 7 husbands and 7 women. It's like a soap opera. I don't know, what else would you like to know?
How old are your kids?
My oldest is gonna be 40 in September, 38, 36, my daughter will be 36 in May, and my baby is 34. One's an occupational therapist, used to be a teacher, one's a nurse. One is, my son is like a recruiter for lawyers, high-end lawyers, and my oldest is like a project manager, director for a company that has been this since out of college.
Wow.
And I'm a grandmother. I'm a new grandmother. My granddaughter's name is Frances Rowan, and she lives in California, and it makes me very, very sad.
Yeah.
And she's 6 months.
Oh.
I've seen her 3 times. I'm going to meet and other people.
Do you still ride your motorcycle?
No, I saw my
Yeah,
little. Yeah, I had a couple spills, and my husband and my son and I, when I was 4 years old, I had a motorcycle license, and it was great for Sunday morning drives and going out for breakfast, and the dirt doesn't like me. So bad.
And they look at you and said,
No,
No, I said, grandma, no.
I sold it a while ago. Sold it a while ago.
they took that decision on their own.
I will. What else can I answer for you? Anything else today? It's been really nice meeting you all, and
How about questions you have for us?
a lot of them were the budgets, like, what is your plan, right? I think what you're doing here is pretty remarkable. I will start by saying. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why you can't get more money.
You mean from the state?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or there's grants out there, the state gives out,
Oh, I mean, they've been pulling in the grants. They have.
but like, you need an old person who's got lots of money, who believes in this.
That would be great.
Who believes in this.
We need a benefit.
Yeah, yeah, because at some point, there's gonna be a crossroads, right? And you have to be prepared for that.
Well, they're, they're at that point in terms, we're at that point in terms of the foundation budget. And, we're obviously the whole harmless. And all the districts, it's 275 right now, are all the whole harmless. So they're just, because of the formula works,
It's
we
crazy.
just aren't getting the money that, was intended when it first started out. And it was a progressive system that, I think back when they based it on enrollment growing, they created a foundation budget, they never thought about what would happen if districts started to shrink. So they kept taking money away from districts over time, and in 2008, they said, oh, we can't keep doing this, we'll invent whole harmless. And we'll just give you 150,000 for a kid,
Small.
yeah, real small per kid. And, pretty soon, you're gonna have like 90% of the state's gonna be in. So. It's a problem that everyone's gonna be facing.
Yes. I've seen it. I've
Yeah.
seen the crunch. It's a crunch. But you're in a realistic, like, you have a realistic budget. But I've seen it in other larger districts where the budget didn't represent what was really happening in the schools and wasn't prioritized.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
You might be really tight, but you think we're realistic.
yeah.
Well, there's no money, I mean, it's just like everything's right out there. I'm, well,
Yeah.
I mean, you did see several budget questions here, and in part because we are so small.
Yeah.
What gets us through is the nimbleness, and that everybody who is on the team
It's pitching in.
is pitching in, but understands the detail down to the most minute detail. None of the saying, well, every year we just change this by this percent. No, you need to know.
Yeah,
And that dollar comes in, what it's for, what it's going.
and that's what it's going to.
Yes,
And there's no. Yeah,
Very transparent.
yeah,
yeah.
that's good. It's really good. The kids were a joy today. I thoroughly enjoyed meeting the kids. They were so sweet and
passionate.
yeah, and the teachers, they're like delighted. They have a delight in them about what's going on here. So you should all be very.
Any other kids ask you any questions?
Oh, they sure did. Did they follow me? They came. It was yeah. Yeah, they were really cute. But they, it's their school but their questions were very personal. It was very personal.
Who are you?
No. Well, first they asked me how old I was, and I was stupid enough to tell them. No, they were personal about them.
Personal.
Their questions were like, what would you do and how would you help me? So
Wow.
the counselor knows.
Yeah.
So you're teaching kids to think is really working.
I mean, I had gone in this morning and talked to them and what things do I want to do? So what would you want to be asking these candidates? And Betty and I were just so impressed. I mean, they just immediately had this big list of questions and then went I got them as the initial ones, but then they had so many personal questions. I mean, they really,
It was great.
yeah.
So they were asking for individual, can you see and hear me?
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
yeah.
So yeah, I was very proud.
Yeah, they were great. They were great.
Oh,
Any other, I have like tons of questions, but I think I'm good. I think I'm good with them. Any other questions for me before I go over the river and through the woods? Just an hour. But I purposely went through the woods, like on the trail like this.
dirt road.
And my car's really low to the ground, and all of a sudden I ended up on a dirt road to get to the main road. I was just following my GPS, which was fine because there were no potholes on it. I was like, that's remarkable. Because they're all potholes by me. There wasn't a single pothole on that dirt road. I forget what it was called. Penny or
In town,
or like it was way up there and it came out into this main road.
not 119.
I did 119
Yeah.
and then I went on some other little roads.
Oh.
I didn't want to take the highway.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the scenic.
Yeah.
route.
Yeah, well, I didn't still take one.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful night. Nice to see you.
Yeah, this evening. Okay.